Hey guys, Quinlan here, and this time I've got another commentary for you from my Rogie. And yeah, in this video I'm going to focus a lot on the new changes that I have just seen to Rogues as of May 26th. And I need to tell you guys about them because they're awful. I hate them. If you've been watching my Rogue videos, you'll notice that when 4.1 came out, I opened the video with "It's a good time to be a rogue." And now I'm thinking as of 4.2, it is not going to be as good a time to be a rogue. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't know. I gotta tell you guys about these and let me know what you think. Maybe I'm overreacting to the changes, but I don't think I am. I'm not even a pro rogue, and I can see so many of these changes, and I can see the negative effects that so many of these changes can have. And well, actually, I'm being a little too critical. There's only one real bad change. The rest are actually positive changes. So yeah, so you're gonna hear about one really bad change to rogues, and a lot of really good ones. So I always like to start with hearing the bad news first. Maybe you guys don't, but let's start with the bad news, and then maybe I can cheer you guys up a bit after. So going this isn't the actual really bad news, but this just opens up into it. Cloak of Shadows cooldown is now 2 minutes, up from 90 seconds. In addition, Cloak of Shadows is no longer on the global cooldown. And when you look at this, you think that sucks, and it does suck. 30 seconds more on Cloak of Shadows, but then it tells you that it's no longer on the global cooldown, and this has its merits as well. Because when you think about it this way, Cloak of Shadows can now be macroed into a lot of abilities that use the global cooldown. So yeah, that's gonna be pretty sweet. See the macros that people come up with while using Cloak of Shadows, and yeah, I really like the fact that it's no longer in the global cooldown, because now an example macro is now you just macro Cloak of Shadows and Vanish together. So you just push one button and you get a Vanish with no dots on you. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that I see happening with this new change. But then here's the kicker. It tells you that Combat Readiness and Cloak of Shadows now share a cooldown. Take that in for a second. Just think about it. Think about what that means. And yeah. And yeah, it's probably starting to dawn on you that that is actually not good. It's not good at all. Alright. Let me lay up a sample situation for you, okay? You're fighting a Feral Druid. In any fight with a melee, Combat Readiness is so useful because their melee attacks reduce the damage they deal to you up to 50%. So it's a 1v1 fight, and you're fighting a Feral Druid. So as most Feral Druids do, he applies Fairy Fire to you. So Fairy Fire means that you can't stealth, vanish, any of those things for basically forever, because he's just going to keep applying Fairy Fire to you. What gets rid of Fairy Fire is the Cloak of Shadows. So now, guys, you have to make the decision whether you want a 50% damage, 50% less damage taken buff, or the ability to stealth. Yeah, that's what it is now. You might lose the ability to stealth against the Feral Druid, because just the 50% damage, less damage taken is so useful. You need that in so many fights. And the fact that now, if you use it, you won't be able to use Cloak of Shadows is just so huge. It's just going to change so many situations, and it's just going to make things a lot more stressful to be a rogue, because this is one of our only really big decisions. Like, we don't have any other abilities that share cooldowns really with each other. So, do you want to Cloak of Shadows, or do you want to Combat Readiness? And you're going to have to think about that. And you might think, oh, I definitely need a Combat Readiness. And then 5 seconds later, a Frost Mage comes and freezes you, and you think, a Cloak of Shadows would be really nice right now. So, I don't like this change. I hate it. There's so many situations like with DK and their diseases and stuff like that. Like, you won't be able to hide, you won't be able to reopen unless you use Cloak of Shadows, because their disease damage will take you out of stealth. But you really want that Combat Readiness against a DK, like any melee class. And yeah, just like that change, it's just so awful. And I don't know, maybe like the Spellsteal change came onto the PTR, and people went crazy over it. It was all over the forums, and eventually Blizzard took the change away. I'm praying at this moment that the same thing happens to this change, because I don't know. I think there's so many classes that deserve nerfs, and we just weren't one of them. Just, I don't know. Like, I'm sure a lot of people disagree, but rogues are, like, they're pretty hard to play. And, like, some classes you have a really tough time with. Like, for example, a Frost Mage. Like, they're just it's not easy to win against a lot of classes as a rogue. And the fact that we're losing one of our main cooldowns is just awful. Just because as a rogue, cooldown management is key. If you have a cooldown, you can basically survive almost anything. Like, depending on which cooldown you have, I'm sure the cooldown you use is related to the situation you're in. You can survive any fight basically. And now we just lose one of our cooldowns. We just have one less. And as most people know, a rogue without cooldowns goes down so quickly. And it's just not a good situation right now. I don't know. I'm not liking this. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it'll get changed actually. I can't go crazy negative on this before 4.2 actually comes out, because we might get something like the mages did with their spell steal, where you use one in the cooldown, like, I don't know, maybe an energy cost of them both or something like that. I don't know. I'm hoping it just changes, but it's just gonna make things really rough for being a rogue at the moment. Alright, so now I'm gonna start with talking about the positive things, because there are a lot of positive things, guys. And though I'm telling you right now that your survivability isn't gonna be as good in 4.2 as it was in 4.1, just listen to me when I say that your damage is gonna be awesome. Alright, so let's start. I'm just gonna start from the top of the list, and I have Assassination. Alright, so if you're a rogue, you should be aware of the ability Assassin's Resolve, and that's what you get when you choose Assassination as your spec. Basically, it increases. Assassin's Resolve has a part of it where it increases your damage by 15% if you're using daggers, right? Now, that is now 20% in 4.2. So you're just going to be dealing 5% more damage. Who doesn't like that? 5% more damage is huge, okay? So now, the next thing in Assassination is Vile Poisons now increases poison damage by 36%, up from 20%. And Vile Poisons is a must-have talent in the Assassination tree, because poisons are where your damage, a lot of your damage comes from as an Assassination rogue. You need your poisons, you reforge into poisons as an Assassination rogue, and your poisons are dealing so much damage. And this just increases your poison damage by even more. And that, the Vile Poisons talent and your mastery, will just stack together to furthermore increase your poison damage. And then you got to look at that Assassin's Resolve is going to increase your poison damage by even more, 5%. So just Assassin's damage is going to go up a lot. And I don't know, I really like Assassination. Its damage, its burst was always awesome. It just had no mobility. I couldn't beat a mage, I couldn't beat a hunter. I just had no hope there. And so now we're going to move on to combat. I know not a lot of people are actually playing combat, but I don't know, combat has some good looking talents, and I want to actually see it become viable in the future. Like, I want to see a lot of people playing combat. Hopefully they make a lot more changes to it, because it has some really cool looking talents. Like, for example, sprint breaks movement pairing effects, and kick is a silence, and deadly throw becomes an interrupt. Like, that kind of stuff is pretty useful. Especially because just having a silence and an interrupt as a rogue, like, you already have kick as an interrupt, but making kick a silence and then making deadly throw your interrupt, that's awesome. Just, yeah, like, I don't see how combat isn't used. Like, I know it has its issues, obviously, like any other spec, but I really want to see combat become usable in the future. I want to play combat. I played combat PvE, leveling up and as just a PvE in Wrath, and I had so much fun with it. And it looks like it has a lot more abilities, and a lot more talents that just make it really fun to play, especially PvP. Alright, so now moving on to just the combat changes. So Savage Combat now increases attack power by 6%, up from 4%. 2% attack power, really great. So now, Vitality, which is what you get for choosing combat as your spec, now increases attack power by 30%, up from 25%. So you're looking at 7% more attack power. And obviously 7% more attack power is awesome. The more attack power you have, the better. So, yeah, it's just a big buff to combat as well as assassination. Like, every spec is getting their damage buff, and it's really great. But just this one bad change kind of makes it all bittersweet, if you know what I mean. Like, it's all the positive changes are great, but I just keep focusing on this one really bad one, and I don't know. I want to know what you guys think, what you think about this change, and if you think it's needed. Like, I know a lot of people don't play rogues, and if you think rogues deserve to have this nerf, then I don't know. I'd like to know about that. I personally think they don't deserve it, but obviously I have a biased opinion because I play a rogue, so my opinion's not really accurate, I'd say. Okay, so now moving on to subtlety. Elusiveness, which is a must-have talent, reduces it at the moment. It reduces the cooldown of Cloak of Shadows and Vanish, and obviously the lower those cooldowns are, the better. So Elusiveness now reduces the cooldown of Cloak of Shadows by 30 seconds, up from 20. Yeah, that's pretty good, but you gotta remember the Cloak of Shadows cooldown got increased by 30 seconds. So if you had this talent, your Cloak of Shadows cooldown is now going to be a minute and a half, which is the normal cooldown that Cloak of Shadows is right now. But in 4.2 it would be 2 minutes. So you're looking at a longer cooldown on Cloak of Shadows as it is. But here is a little bit of a positive thing to this. It now also reduces the cooldown of Combat Readiness by 30 seconds. So at least now you'll be able to use Combat Readiness 30 seconds faster. Yeah, that's pretty useful, but still, just the nerf in this all just overshadows this, I think. But you always got to look at the positive, and this at least Combat Readiness is gonna have a lower cooldown. Okay, so now this change: Sanguinary Vein damage to bleeding targets has been increased to 16% from 10. So what Sanguinary Vein does is increases the damage that you personally deal right now to a target that is bleeding by 10%. So since you have, as a sub-rogue, you have Hemorrhage, and you have the improved Hemorrhage talent where it also applies a bleed effect. Wait, that's the Glyphed Hemorrhage, where it also applies a bleed effect. Then what that means is that you always have a bleed effect on your target. So you're always dealing 10% more damage to them. So now, since this talent's getting buffed, you'll just be constantly dealing 16% more damage to a target. So you're getting a 6% constant damage buff. And obviously that's great. Sub-rogues are already dealing so much damage, and just 6% more. You gotta appreciate that. But yeah, just all these crazy changes. I don't know why they were all necessary. I'd be happy with just keeping rogues the way they are, to be honest. But I don't know. We're gonna have to see, guys. Maybe the changes aren't as bad as I think, but we'll have to check it out. And actually, maybe things will go back to normal like they were with just Frost Mages and Spellsteel. And we might just get a smaller change. We can't really assume that it's going to stay this way until 4.2 actually comes out. So yeah, so maybe things will get better, maybe things will get worse. I don't know, guys. I'm not sure. Rogues have been getting pretty good buffs consistently. Well, we did get a pretty bad nerf from Smoke Bomb's duration being reduced, but besides that, we've been getting good buffs, and we're still getting good buffs, as you can see from all our damage things. But we just got a huge nerf with this patch, and yeah, I don't know. It's not going to be too good. And I don't want to get started focusing on what I'm actually doing in the game at the moment, because I haven't done this whole video, and it just really wouldn't look good. If you've been watching what's happening in the video, you'll have seen that basically I've been going on a crazy run this game. I think at the moment I have like 16 killing blows, 0 deaths, all that stuff. I was graveyard camping, and if you watched my Warlock video, you'll have seen how good graveyard camping is now with the new graveyards, and the same can be said for sub-rogue, because you can just shadow step up there and get a stealth or vanish up, and then just sap somebody. They all leave. No one ever seems to protect their teammates up there, and then just kill a target. And then eventually, if you were watching, you saw that we had just way too many people in their graveyard. We were just holding so many people back, and we actually just had to leave. We had to run out of there. We couldn't hold it any longer. We had a good force hitting them, And yeah, we just had to get out though. Too much going on. So then I decided to go for the flag, and I make a mistake. I thought the Death Knight was the flag carrier. That was just a big mistake on my part. But I redeemed myself by nuking down this shaman really badly, and yeah, and I returned the flag, and then jumping on that Death Knight and getting the kill too. So I'm just going to end the video around here, specifically because it's a full 25-minute video, and I know that I've kept all my commentaries intact, but I don't think anyone wants to watch just a PvP video for 30 minutes, 25 minutes. Like, I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I don't want to keep my video going.